Shawn Kelly and Jason Sledgehammer I Am Petro. Brought to you by UPRN Network. Now for your host, Jenny Nicasio.
Good evening and welcome to Chasing Prophecy on FM 105.3 in New Orleans, where we discuss anything and everything beyond the scope of normal. I'm Jenny Nicasio along with Shawn Kelly and Jason I Am Petro. Remember to like us on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. Whew. It's a full moon, guys, coming up the 24th.
Yeah. Last day of summer today, isn't it? I'm still waiting for summer to begin.
Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't wonder. I thought we had a pretty good summer, weather-wise. I mean, it could be worse.
I don't even know.
It was really humid out there for a while.
Oh,
and then it rained.
Humidity is so good. I love it. I love humidity. I thrive in humidity. Seriously, I do. I love it. I'm like a snake, you know.
So how you been?
We're down to Florida.
How you been? What's going on with you, Jen?
Oh, geez. Let's see. Starting to actually write again, so I'm excited. I finished my my first that I did myself screenplay, and I sent it out to some agents. I'm hoping somebody calls me, and I'm still waiting from the sky. I'm still waiting to find out if they're going to actually make this into a movie or not. I'm getting kind of edgy, kind of nervous, and other than that, I mean, I'm okay. I've been, looking forward to Halloween. I didn't know if it was too early to decorate yet, but I see my neighbors are.
Well, there you go.
I saw you guys.
You decorate them?
Yeah, I have a special witch that I take out every year, and I have a broom that I usually park outside. But I'm gonna rev it up. I'm gonna rev it up.
Transportation for October.
Yes. I'm gonna rev it up. Maybe I have to take it out and do some the combustion, all that. A little maintenance on it. I was going to take it out this Saturday for the full moon, so you never know. You might see me flying over.
You'll just sweep us all away.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be waiting for you.
Well, somebody's got to get out there and fly over the moon. Might as well be me. Let's see. I seen you guys had a paranormal, and you had a show talk in that little tiny house.
Oh my God.
Oh wow!
Talking about two giants in a little house.
I thought it was hysterical, guys.
That was more like a she-shed kind of thing.
It was, but I tell you what, for how small that was, you actually got 3 beds in there. You got a bunk, and then you had a
you actually slept in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. They had air conditioning. Of course we were going to sleep there. And then the air conditioner wouldn't shut off, so it's freezing half to death. It's 61 degrees.
Yeah, it was bad. We froze.
And then I got my sleeping bag out, and then the air conditioner did shut off, and then I started getting hot and sweating. And I'm like, what the?
Yeah, I would have liked to seen you guys inside it, like stand up.
Well, inside wasn't bad. It was that front door. Did you see that? That's like,
Yeah,
that was like a baby doll door. Well, see, Jason had his cot in the back where the big door was at, and our only way out was through that small little door. And I'm surprised
I had to back out.
I had to back out. Honest to God,
that was funny. I'm sorry to say, I thought it was really funny.
Okay.
Oh, it was hilarious. I agree.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we had to go. I'm sorry.
Go. You had fun.
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
Yeah.
You should have Facebooked it, like you could see it live.
There was absolutely no service out there.
Oh, okay.
Nothing.
Not at all.
Well, let's get to the show tonight because we have a jam-packed night with our guest. He has lived a paranormal life for sure since the age of 4, having experienced angels, demons, ghosts, cryptids. He talks about telepathy and psychokinesis, mediumship, you name it, alien contact. He's also published a trilogy of paranormal books about his personal paranormal experiences. I probably will screw it up. There's Timeless, Timeless Deja Vu, and Timeless Trinity. And most recently published a book about his contact with an alien, ancient alien mystic named Anzar. It sounds like Ashtar. Okay.
Yeah.
So I am not even going to attempt to do his last name. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in because I'll mess it up for sure. Welcome to the show, Bruce. I go ahead and pronounce your last name.
Solheim.
Solheim. Okay, it wasn't that
Yeah.
hard. It's not that hard, but I would have messed it up for sure.
Hey, Bruce.
I have
Hey.
a problem with.
How y'all doing?
Thanks for coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh yes,
Absolutely.
I have to say I'm very intrigued with your bio. Bruce, you know, everywhere we look today, there's something paranormal. If it's not UFOs, it's cryptic creatures, missing 411, UFO phenomena that we can't explain. I want you to tell me, because I was, you know, I listened to the video that you posted. And what is that? I don't have it on here. I'm sorry. What is the documentary that you posted?
Yeah, I've been on 2 shows recently. One was Alien Encounters Declassified.
Yeah, that's the one I watched. That's the one.
Yeah, I was interviewed on that one, and I was actually in it, which is kind of interesting. And
Yes.
then the other one that's coming up the end of this month is called Unidentified with Demi Lovato, you know, the pop star. And they interviewed me, but, you know, I don't know if I'm going to end up, you know, on the editing room floor or whatever. You never know until they actually.
Yeah. So let me ask you. Okay. So what I find interesting is that you said that you claim that your first paranormal encounter was at the age of 4. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, I am a mother. I raised 2 sons, and I remember when they were 4 and they had vivid imaginations. So how do you know it just wasn't a childhood fantasy?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I teach a paranormal class in addition to my history classes at the college. And I always enjoy people asking questions like that, because I think that's really important. That's a very natural thing to ask those questions and not just, you know, believe people's stories wholesale or whatever. But yeah, so I was in northern Norway, and at my grandmother's house, where my parents are from. They're from this island 200 miles above the Arctic Circle. And I had an angelic healing experience that was witnessed also by my mother and my grandmother. And they told me it was I just told them there was a bright light in the ceiling, and that I felt like I was totally cured, because I was very, very sick. They thought I was going to die. And it's a very remote place. Even today, it's remote, but especially in the early 60s. And when I woke up, I was perfectly fine. And my mom and my grandmother said it was a miracle. And I told them about the light, and they said that was a guardian angel. And I was very lucky to have survived. And because actually my eldest brother died in that house, that same old farmhouse, during World War II. So so it was confirmed by my mom and my grandmother that that's what it was. Although they didn't see the bright light like I did, I just explained what it was. But yes, children do have great imaginations, and I believe they also have great insights into the other worlds. And oftentimes adults don't believe them. And and some of it might be made up, you know, just for fun, and others might be real. So it's hard to determine which is which. Oftentimes it can be very difficult to determine that.
Shawn, what do you think?
I agree with them. Whenever I work with a client and they have children, a lot of times the parents will sit down and talk to me, and they tell me about their son or daughter's imaginary friend. Yeah. And I tell them all the time, I said, you know, let the kids talk. Just let them listen. And they do, you know what I mean? Because you'll be surprised that in all my investigations that I've done, a lot of the parents really, really don't listen to their children a lot. You know, they just let them talk. They just call them crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. and it hurts when I hear that, and believe it or not, I do get angry at the parents we're doing. I said, you have to let them talk. You have to let them explain what they're talking about. Not only does it make them feel better, but also gives you an insight on the kid and what he is seeing, So that's my feeling. I don't know if you're on the same boat as I am with that, but that's what
Jason, you have a new baby, but I know he's kind of young. But what do you think about that? Do you think it could be a childhood fantasy?
My wife and I were just actually talking about that a lot of times it seems like he's watching like people behind us, like spirits, because you'll see him just like look off, like he's paying attention to something, but we can't see it. And I feel like he's just like a little Energizer bunny himself, just full of energy, and
he's cute.
And kids all the time are more susceptible because as adults, a lot of people try to like tune stuff out, and kids, they're just wide open, vessels or whatever, and they just happen to see a lot of different stuff that we don't. But that's where, like Shawn was saying, a lot of times people or adults don't believe their kids, and maybe it's something that we should look more into. In my opinion.
Yeah, I was lucky in that my mom was very psychic, so she already had experiences her whole life, and her mother was very psychic as well and a healer. So it kind of, I had that support at home, but there was also the realist aspect, which was my father, who didn't believe in any of this stuff. and then when you go to school, he was a no nonsense fisherman, carpenter guy, and I think that was the only thing that scared him was the paranormal. He wasn't afraid of fishing in Alaska, or he was in a labor camp in World War II, in a Nazi labor camp. So he was not afraid of much, but he was afraid of the paranormal stuff. But anyway, what I was going to say is that in school they start to teach you that your invisible friends aren't real. And I told my mom, I was very upset. I remember telling her, they say that John and Johnny, or my two, I wasn't very creative with the names, I guess, but John and Johnny were not real. And I told my mom, and she said, just, do what the teacher says, but, we know what's going on. So if you see them, they are real to you. And I think the best word for it is something, the word imaginal, which is beyond imaginary and closer to real, this idea of imaginal. So I think kids are very psychic naturally, and they see things that a lot of adults have been trained not to see. Not that they can't see it, but a lot of times they just kind of tune it out or have been taught to tune it out. And one of the things I do in my paranormal class is we all do an experiment with called the being stared at experiment, which everybody has felt. You feel like somebody's staring at you, and you turn around and sure enough there's somebody staring at you. Well, right. How in the heck does that work? We don't have eyes in the back of our head, right? So we do that experiment in class, and you get a very impressive hit rate, even with people who are somewhat skeptical about it. So we just kind of open people's minds to the concept that maybe there's a lot more than meets the eye.
Jason, doesn't that sound like Robert the doll sort of kid? The guy Robert with his, his little imaginary friend.
Yeah, Robert the doll. That's something else, man. Like, you got to be very respectful of that doll. And I got to meet him. I was down in Key West, and I read a lot of stories about people that unwillingly, accidentally took pictures of him and everything, and they just end up like cursed and writing letters asking for forgiveness. So knowing that when I was there, and the backstory, with the kid that had the doll, and then he grew up, and it's a long story, but like I made sure I asked for permission. I said thank you, gave a donation, and like, please, don't curse me because I'm really far away from home.
Don't take any chances.
Yeah.
Oh God, no. No.
So tell us about, and when I'm going to go back. I'm going to go up the list, and I just wanted to touch the last one that touches upon the psychokinesis.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my one book. My one character has that. So tell if someone doesn't know about what that is, can you explain it to us? And well, how does it fit into your life?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Psychokinesis it's also known as telekinesis. So this idea that you can move or change objects just with your mind, your power of your mind, and it's actually understanding that we're all connected. So it has to do with the idea that the quantum world is the reality, and what we are experiencing right now is an interface. What the physicist David Bohm called the explicate reality, which is the everyday reality, whereas where all this stuff happens, the quantum world, the spirit world, the alien world, I would expand it to that, is the implicate reality, which is really how things are, how subatomic particles work. So if you can understand, if you can make that connection, then you can do the things like, the spoon bending or make objects move. And all of this stuff has been proven in a laboratory, and it's been shown over and over again, although it's not generally accepted by most scientists, but because they're afraid of their reputation, that's a big problem. But like Dean Radin, who's a friend of mine, is the chief scientist at IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences in Petaluma, California. And they have done lots of experiments with telekinesis, psychokinesis. But a lot of it is what you call at a small level. So you're not, like, if you're going to make something move, it's going to move just a little bit. And what people expect, and here's why it's not so impressive to a lot of folks, is that it's not Harry Potter magic, It's magic, but it's not, along those lines. Although there are, every once in a while, there's somebody who can do, what they call macro PK, which is to make larger things move a lot more. So it's an incredible, it's a power that we all have, but you just have to understand the connection. And it's really pretty simple. Dean Radin explains it in his book, Real Magic. All you have to have is intention and attention. So attention, focused, calm attention, and then the intention to do the thing, whatever it is. And, you don't need candles and robes and incantations and all that stuff. It's all innate, but, within us.
So you're saying that anybody can do this?
Anybody could do it if they practice enough and get to the what I said, the relaxed state, or that state of mind where you can connect to the implicate order or to the quantum world to get glimpses of it,
Well, now see, for me, now this works many times, like when I'm driving at night and I get some car tailgating me, deliberately.
Brake check.
It's not even that. I just I imagine that his tires are going to blow up with a lot of nails that are on them.
Anger. I thought I was angry.
But I tell you what, though, it's like I'm driving and I see this guy behind me so close. It's like in my mind, I'm like, back off. And it literally backs off. So I don't know if you can call that telekinesis or what, but it works.
Well, after seeing you driving this past weekend, I think it's more of your driving than telekinesis.
It ain't my driving. You weren't around when I was driving. So there.
It could be a combination of sending the message to the guy, but the fact that you're having an impact on him, or maybe you're having an impact on his vehicle, or maybe both. So it could be both telepathy and telekinesis. It could be a combination. Hard to distinguish which is which, unless you're in a laboratory setting. It'd be hard to figure it out in the world. But there's many cases of things like that. But anyway, that's what PK is, psychokinesis. Also, the nickname is PK.
PK.
There's a really interesting book by Jeffrey Mishlove called The PK Man. Came out many years ago, but it was about one of these people that comes around every couple hundred years that can do the macro PK. But you would think it would be awesome to have that power, but it basically destroyed this guy. because he couldn't get he ended up being kind of a nut job, because he had this ability to do these things. And he wanted the military and the government to pay attention to him, and they thought he was too out of control. So he ultimately ended up, dying at a pretty young age. I think he just kind of, I don't know if he imploded or whatever, but the idea that he just destroyed himself, it's kind of a Shakespearean tale in a way.
We have a comment from Steve Grave in the chat. He said, there's a lot of evidence that intention can affect the outcome of quantum random number generators. I don't understand what that means.
What's that mean?
Yeah, so like when you have a random number generator, supposedly, or it can happen, they've shown it in laboratory experiments, that you can impact the outcome of those random number generators, which you wouldn't think would be possible, but it is possible. It's been shown in experiments. So that's anyway, that's what that's about. So
I have a
go
ahead,
question Jason.
for you, Bruce.
Yeah.
So I had a personal experience, and you're very knowledgeable in this, so I figured I'd ask you. My son, he's 16 months old now, and when he was 6, 7, 8 months old, everywhere me and him were together, lights would start flickering. Now, I don't mean just like a flash here or there, like, light bulbs burning out or something. I mean, everywhere we went, restaurants, shopping centers, the house, it was like just a giant, we were in church, and out of all the lights, the ones directly above us started flickering and then went out, and then they came back on later on, and like nothing ever happened. Like, is that some kind of telekinetic or psychokinetic kind of energy? Like I've been trying to find an answer for it, but I just couldn't find it. So any input would be amazing.
I mean, that's kind of well documented that a lot of people have that ability to impact like street lights and lighting and electrical fields. Interestingly, a lot of people who have been abducted by aliens have this thing happen to them. My friend Terry Lovelace, who was abducted when he was in the Air Force, has an impact on electrical equipment, because you try to get a hold of the guy on the phone, everything always goes wrong. On the computer, everything goes wrong. It's just like he doesn't want to have that effect on it, but it does.
Right.
And I think the younger somebody is, the less they are aware that they're causing it to happen. And more importantly, they don't believe that they can't cause it to happen. They just, they're not going to write it off. Like a little kid has that effect. They're not going to say, oh, I shouldn't do that, or, oh, that's not real. They'll just, oh, it's just the way things are. They just accept it.
Yeah, because there was
hereditary.
I think so. I think there are two things. I think there's, I'll use a baseball analogy because I love baseball. Everybody can throw a ball, right? Most everybody can throw a ball. Some people can throw it 100 miles an hour. Very few, right? Some people can throw it 90 miles an hour. That's pretty impressive. Some people 80 miles an hour. Still impressive, right? So there's varying degrees of the impact that they can have in the paranormal world. But that can also be enhanced with training as well. If people are dedicated to it. Whatever your natural ability is, you can enhance that. Or if you have an elevated ability, you can even get to be more. But the most important thing is that you learn how to use it judiciously. And that's the problem. The guy I was telling you about, the PK man, I remembered his name now. It's Ted Owens. If your listeners want to look him up, Ted Owens, the PK man. He didn't have good control of the emotional side of it. He had all these abilities, but can you imagine having all these abilities and being able to hurt people spontaneously? I mean, think about it. We were talking about that earlier, just kind of in a joking way, right?
Right.
But can you imagine if that was something you could do instantaneously? It's very, very scary, and it's probably more power than people can ever get used to. And it ultimately, like I said, destroyed him. So.
I just wanted to mention the weird part about, after like my son and I would get together and lights flashing, it actually kind of carried over to myself a little bit too. Because there was times where I was out and about, and it sounds crazy to a lot of people, but when you start walking under lights and they just start flashing and flickering, and then you go out from under them and they come back on like nothing happened.
Mhm.
It's a little strange in my opinion, but that didn't start until, he got here. So
It
Very
could be that it just, he's acting like an amplifier.
yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he's
So-
running around the house screaming, let me tell you, he's an amplifier.
Oh my God, yeah.
And a lot of poltergeists, and not to scare you with poltergeist stuff, but a lot of that is attributed to young people in the house, young kids in the house.
Right.
So causing a lot, or attracting a lot of this. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, a lot of clients that I've gone and helped out, most of the time. Now, I don't want to be rude or sound like a pervert here, but I know that when a young woman starts going over into womanhood,
Mhm.
okay, when their body changes, that's where a lot of poltergeists are going at. The energy that they release by that. And I got a story to tell you on that. We did one up in Johnstown, PA. And so the client called me up and told me all this stuff is happening. Things are breaking. Things are flying off the wall. All that nonsense. And so as I sat down and I talked to her, I got more information about it. And at the time, her niece would come over on the weekends, and she was 13, 14 years old. So the days that she spent there on the weekend, that's when all this crap would happen. You know what I mean? And whenever she would go back to her mom's place for a week, okay, everything in the house just quit, And so I believe, especially in houses, when teenage girls or young girls are changing into womanhood, that the energy that they release causes a lot of stuff in the house.
Yeah. I think there's a connection, like I said, between young people and if they're, having difficulty in their, in that transition, to adulthood, that can often attract other energies or attract things that they're not, able to really, push away or don't know how to push it away.
Right.
I mean, this can happen to anybody, people who are, good people, decent people. It can still happen because it's out there. Those things are out there in the spirit world. And sometimes you accidentally do something to let them in, or if you're in a location that already has that energy there, then of course it's with you already. So,
right.
Well, how do you know it's like you have this, I don't know, like telepathy? Like do you experience telepathy, or do you just experience, moving objects?
No, I've experienced telepathy. That's so basically PK or psychokinesis is mind to object, impacting an object. Telepathy is mind to mind, between two entities or living entities.
No, can you do it like listen to Jason?
I don't want to. I'll put it this way.
What am I thinking? Could you tell what I'm thinking?
No, it's not that simple. It's really not what people are thinking. It's what their intentions are. You can pick up on their intentions, and
well, is that really considered to be telepathic?
Yeah, because let's say what would happen to me before I really learned how to deal with this. I hated to go to parties because I would go into a party and I would start hearing people's intentions, not what they were saying or not even what they're doing. Before I even saw them, I could hear what their intentions were. I could feel their intentions.
How does that work?
Well, it can drive you crazy if you can't.
There was a character on True Blood, Sookie Stackhouse. She could feel everybody's. Did you watch that, Jason?
Yeah.
You hear everybody, whatever they're,
Yeah.
Well, Bruce, wouldn't you consider that being an empath?
No, that's not an empath. I don't think.
Well, if he's feeling other people's feelings and intentions, yeah.
Yeah, so that
That's
is empathic. Telepathy, that would be like what my mom and I used to do with cards. So like if you, like what we would do is we would get a deck of playing cards, and then she would send, she would hold a card and then send me the information, and then I would pick up, oh, that's the King of Hearts. And we would get a hit rate that was way greater than 50%. I mean, much greater than 50, not perfect, but greater than 50%, which is way beyond chance. Right?
Isn't that the same thing as all the ESP cards that they, am I seeing a star?
Yes, all the different symbols. Yeah, being able to see it in your mind that somebody else is sending. Yeah, so that's telepathy. And my mom and I used to do that, and then my dad would walk in and see us doing it, and he'd tell us to put the cards away.
Oh, geez.
And then my mom would put the cards away because she didn't want to make Dad upset, and then she'd wink at me, So I knew that I knew it was real. I mean, I knew it was happening right in front of me. We were doing that. So
if I put a card here, can you figure it out what it is? We can do an experiment. Think you can do it?
Oh man,
I'm being totally serious. I'll write down.
I feel like what's his name, Uri Geller on the Johnny Carson show.
So let's try it. I mean, hey, I want to see some of this stuff.
Well, while you're getting that ready, Jenny.
Okay.
Bruce, a lot of people were probably like curious about, wanting to make things move with the powers, like, and having to practice. A lot of people probably get discouraged. Do you know, like, they might want to ask how much practice, does it take before you might experience your first object moving per se? Like, do you have to practice every day for 6 months, a year, or is it just everybody's super different?
I think everybody's different. Everybody's different in what they're able to do. And I'll share with you what a psychic told me once, and this I think applies to telekinesis too. He said that a professional psychic, been doing it for years, said you're as psychic as you need to be.
Oh,
yeah. So in other words, if you don't need to be any more than you are already, then you might not get any more.
Okay.
It depends on what's available to you. But the idea of increase, yes, I think you can train yourself, but there's also the idea, and this is also in Dean Radin's book, he talks about, intention and attention, but he also warns a person, if you're doing something that impacts another person's free will, then that will come back on you. That's going to harm you. Right. So if you're like saying, I want to make this other person do something against their will, to benefit me, then it's a very slippery slope. And I guess in Star Wars terms, that would be using the dark side,
Isn't that kind of like part of the Wiccans as well? Like whatever you put out onto like somebody else, you'll get back kind of thing?
Well, there's white magic and there's black magic, of course, right. And then there's gray magic, which is kind of in between. You could do like a binding spell, which is to stop somebody from hurting other people. That would be different, even though you are technically impacting their free will to do bad things, right? So that's called a binding spell. So these things are possible, but they're not like, it's not like Harry Potter magic, so
why you keep saying Harry Potter? I'm a very big Harry Potter fan. Why isn't it like Harry Potter?
Because that's made for theatrical release. That's a movie, so they're gonna make things very sensational, when in reality it's the reality of magic is much more in a micro level.
I can't pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Well, if you were a stage magician, you probably could.
Okay. I didn't forget about the ESP test. So I have one. I wrote down something. I'm going to tell you. You have to choose between a star, a square, a circle, or it's like oblong. So what do I have here?
A star, a square, a circle, or a rectangle, right?
Yeah, a rectangle.
Or a parallelogram, or maybe, or something. I don't know. I'm not really prepared.
Just do it.
What's that?
Just take a chance.
I will, but I need to, okay, hold it up without showing me what it is. And are you concentrating on what it is?
No, okay, I'll start concentrating.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything. So. I'm not getting a clear signal, but I'd say a circle.
Yes. Yes. Yes, I called it too.
I wouldn't call it that
Nice.
good of a circle, but it's sort
I
of like
called
a-
it too.
You
I
did
would
it.
almost
Bruce.
Looks like an egg.
Yeah, I almost said egg. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I-
Yeah, well,
I
I'm
called
not
that
the best
too, man.
artist, okay? But you did it.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Okay, I trust you.
Yeah.
Now, can you do psychic readings? I need one. No, I'm teasing.
Oh, here we go.
No, we don't.
There we
No.
go.
I'm
it's
teasing.
something you
Jenny,
really.
you're gonna get tired in 2 hours.
Oh,
Probably gonna be
no,
good.
actually,
Yeah.
I'm on a new thyroid medicine. It's T. I get T3 along with my T4, and I think it actually works.
T8000.
It's just a little bit of T3, but I think it works.
You got the Terminator.
No,
Terminator.
that's rude.
Yeah.
No, don't make fun.
So, Bruce, have you worked with a lot of children?
What's that?
Have you worked with a lot of children?
I've had a lot of children. I have four kids and I have 2 grandkids, but I'm a teacher. So I teach, but I teach community college. So I haven't, as my everyday job, no, I don't work. I work with young adults, but not children.
Okay. And do they just do they just sign up for your class to like just to have an elective, or are there some in there that really want to know what's happening?
Oh, okay. Oh, so my day job is I teach history, U.S. history, Vietnam War,
Okay.
World War II. So that's my training. That's my bread and butter. And then the college allowed me, which I couldn't believe it. They allowed me to also in the evening. I haven't taught it since the pandemic, but a paranormal personal history class, which is a community-based class. So it's not for credit. So the people who
Okay.
take the class pay to take it, but they don't get college credit for it, which makes it kind of fun. There's no exams or quizzes or pressure of any kind. And also the type of student I get very young people, like maybe 17, 18 years old. And I got a lady who was in her 80s in the same class.
Wow.
Men and women, all races, all ethnicities. Some were skeptics, which is kind of cool. Some were professional psychics that wanted to take the class too. But they all shared one thing in common. They wanted a safe place to talk about their experiences.
Right. Right.
And that's what drew them all together. And the first time I offered it, I was shocked. Well, I was shocked the college let me teach it, for one thing, because it had to go through the president, the board of trustees. And these are not willy-nilly decision makers. These are people who are worried about the reputation of the college and all that. But anyway, so they allowed me to teach it. First class I taught, 35 people signed up of all ages. And it was such an awesome class. And I offered it for about 2 years before the pandemic shut us down.
Okay.
And I had people taking the class over and over again, that they just love the camaraderie and their freedom to express themselves and be themselves and not feel, weird by telling their stories. And excuse me, let me get a drink of water. But that's the main reason they take the class. I didn't even know that when I started the class. I had this whole curriculum planned out. I had readings. We were going to do experiments like you were doing there, Jenny. We were going to do things like that. And then had guest speakers lined up like Dean Radin, whom I talked about. And then I found out really what they want to do is tell me their stories and tell each other.
Great. Yeah.
So I had to quickly, that's what you do when you teach. You have to quickly adapt to your students, how they're going to learn. So we had to take a certain amount of time every class period, every time we got together, for them to tell their stories. And then like if somebody had a ghost story, then I would talk about apparitions and how this might work and what some of the experimental data is and, things like that. So I worked it into what I was going to do anyway, but allowed them to tell their stories. So anyway, that's, that's what I do with that. So it's separate from my day job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we go any further, I see that you talk about alien contact.
Yeah.
Now, did you now? Why don't you explain the kind of alien contact now for the audience, our listeners? Now, was it something that you actually had a close encounter of the third kind? Was it a UFO sighting? Did you actually get to see an alien, talk to them, or communicate somehow with the alien?
All of the above.
Oh,
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So, and this,
I love
what's funny is that when I first started writing these paranormal books, and I didn't decide to do that until 2016. So not that long ago, just 5 years ago. And I was always afraid to tell my stories, even my ghost stories, because I thought that I wouldn't be taken seriously as an academic, as a professor. And so I was afraid my colleagues would, disown me, and the college would fire me and all that, which is a common thing with academics. They're afraid to talk about this stuff. But in 2016, a friend of mine passed away in September, and in October, I had a vision. He came to me in a vision. And when I say a vision, I mean, it's like we're talking, although he is, a spirit, obviously in spirit. So he doesn't look like we do, wholly formed. He's more of a, like a hologram or holographic image. And that's how I best describe it. But he told me that it was time to tell my stories. And I told him, hey, I'm afraid I could lose my job. And he said, don't worry about it. He said, it'll be okay. And he even gave me the name of the book. He said, you should call it Timeless, because he said, where I am, there's no past, there's no future. It's all the eternal now. We are timeless. And that's what encouraged me to start writing my books. And I had collected all my stories. I just had never published them. And I started publishing them. Before I knew it, I had 3 books out, 89 different paranormal experiences, including alien stuff. But I started off slow. My first book, I just talked about ghosts and, apparitions and telekinesis and telepathy and stuff. I didn't talk about the alien stuff. And then the second book, I think I mentioned a little bit about it. And then the third book, a lot more. And then this fourth book, which is not part of the Timeless trilogy, but it's standalone book, Anzar the Progenitor. That's all it's about, is one particular ancient alien mystic who has been in my life since I was at least 6 years old. And so I'm no longer afraid of talking about it. And I know it, for some people, it causes a lot of eye rolling and, oh yeah, that's, but then when you think about it, look how things are changing. The government is a lot more, I'm not going to say forthcoming, but they've recognized in their own way, they've recognized this idea of what they call UAPs, or, because they don't want to use the term UFO, right? Because it's loaded. So they call it a UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Yeah.
But they came out with that report a couple months ago. And now, just recently, they are now making the UAP task force into a permanent office as part of the Department of Defense.
Oh, wow.
They just passed it in a budgetary bill that just came out. So they are taking this very seriously, although they're not saying there's little green men or whatever. They're just saying, we don't know what these things are. We don't think, we're not quite sure. It could be enemy stuff. It could be some other. They always say other. They never say alien, right? So that's code word for alien, and but they're taking it very seriously, and that's the official stuff. Unofficially, and I've been privy to a couple of conversations, people that are, and I'm not going to mention their names because they didn't want their names released, but they'll go much farther in private talking about this stuff. And these are people that have worked for the government. So it's becoming much more of a serious topic than it was even 5 years ago, I would say. So it's kind of, there's all these shows coming out, and all of a sudden there's interest, people that, some producer called me, would you like to be on this show? And okay.
Yeah.
And they didn't even tell me who was, they said there's going to be a they didn't even say celebrity. They said, we have talent.
Oh.
It's like, wait a second. Everybody has a talent,
Yeah.
They said, no, we have a talent.
They want to keep it secret, huh?
Yeah, they have to keep it secret, keep it secret, keep it safe, right?
So tell me
I-
about Anzar. I mean, because I know we've talked to a guest who said I want to see if it's the same guy because the names are almost the same. She called his guy Ashtar. So tell me what this guy, you said you've had this experience since you were 6 years old?
Yes. Yeah. I didn't know his name or actually what, exactly what he was at 6, but he helped, actually speaking about children, he helped save me from a child predator.
Oh
When I was
my
6 years
goodness. Well,
old.
how did that happen?
Well, it was actually our neighbor, and he was babysitting. Their family was babysitting me on occasion, and I knew that it was weird. Even though I was 6 years old and didn't know a lot about the world,
You
I
knew
knew
it
there
was
was something wrong with this guy. So I didn't go along with his stupid things that he was doing, these dangerous things he was doing with children, like locking them up in a closet with him all by themselves.
Oh my goodness! And you were there and you seen all this stuff.
Yes, I saw it, and I didn't take part. I was too afraid. I just said I didn't want to go there anymore. And then Anzar shows up. I didn't know him as Anzar. I actually thought he was a monster.
Yeah, I would say so. He sounds like a monster to me.
And then I said, "You look like a monster," and he said, "No, the real monster is in the house up above your house. That's the real monster. I might look like one, but he's the real monster." And that guy just looked like a normal person, which most child predators do look like a normal person. It's not like they look like some kind of Frankenstein's monster or something,
No, it's
no. Like Ashtar, can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Was he in blue and white hair?
He has different appearances. The first time he looked pretty much like a very tall alien, upside down, teardrop shaped head, large slanted eyes, wearing a robe. Can't really remember the color of the robe or anything.
Okay, so it's not Ashtar. So
he that's how he appeared. But he's appeared. Oftentimes he appears as kind of like a proto-human looking, very tall. He's like 7 feet tall. He's very tall.
Shawn, was Ashtar? Was he?
Yes.
Very
tall.
Jason, he was handsome, right? They said he had long blonde white hair, and this guy was very handsome, but sounds like the same guy.
I don't know who you're thinking about, Jenny.
I would describe, I wouldn't describe Anzar as handsome, but maybe ruggedly. So I don't know.
Well, no, he was. I think Ashtar was rugged.
Okay.
He was muscular.
Yeah.
And I've actually had
was Ashtar, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I just got that feeling.
What you had? What did you say, Shawn? I missed that.
I had somebody, I belong to this organization called CERO, Close Encounter Resource Organization. And anyway, I was at a meeting and I asked Anzar, who I'm in communication with, whenever I do a spirit walk, which is a couple times a week, I do a spirit walk and get into a meditative state as I walk up towards the mountains in a very special place here where I live in Southern California. And I asked Anzar, would you be willing to come to the CERO meeting? Because it's all these UFO alien people, right? And he said, sure. And so at the meeting, after the meeting was over, I asked, did anybody see anybody with me? And everybody there knew I didn't mean like, some guy that I just brought with me, but, some kind of entity. And nobody really said anything except for one lady named Lucy. And Lucy said, yeah, who's the big native looking dude behind you? And she said native as in Native American. He has this kind of proto-human look, And I said, that's Anzar. And she said, yeah, he's been there the whole time. I've just been trying to not concentrate on him, but there he is. And when I said his name was Anzar, she says, no way. And I said, yeah, that's his name. And then she said, come here. And I came over to her and she took out her wallet and she had a driver's license. And the street she lived on was Via de Anzar.
Hey, baby.
Oh, wow.
The way to Anzar, which means in Spanish, the way to Anzar. And she is she's a shamanic practitioner in the Native American tradition. So she has Native American blood. So that's how she saw him, and that's most of the time when I see him how he looks. So I even had corroboration. I had her write the foreword to the book as somebody who, a credible person who works in the aerospace industry. She's an engineer, and anyway, she wrote the foreword based on that experience. She wrote it in a very humorous way. She's a very funny lady. But anyway, so that yeah, so I've been in contact with him, and I talk to him a couple times a week when I do these spirit walks. When I say a spirit walk, a lot of people do meditation by sitting down or whatever, on a pillow or something. I can't do that. I got to move. So I'm walking up towards the mountains, and there's a specific route I take. And I know that it was the same route that Native Americans took because I've seen imagery of Native Americans taking this route up towards the mountains, the San Gabriel Mountains. And there's like this long 3/4 mile stretch of road with a wash next to it, where would be a natural river when it's the rainy season, right? And and at the base of this road is a Masonic temple.
Oh, wow.
The Masons don't build their temples just anywhere because they do a lot of ritual magic. So they build them where it's the most advantageous to do so. So it's not surprising they built it right at the base of this road where I start my spirit walk. Well, it's during that spirit walk that I go into a meditative state. I have my phone and I record everything that I hear. It's not that I hear spirits in the phone. I mean, you don't hear their voices in the phone, but I record what I hear and what I ask them. And the reason I do that is because I don't remember after I've done this spirit walk. I don't often remember what has just happened. So, so I have to record it. And then when I get home, I transcribe it. So right now I have over 300 pages of transcribed notes from the last 3 years that I've been doing these spirit walks, which includes all my communication with Anzar.
Have you ever even just take a gander or a look to see, maybe pick one time that you went and put the words together to get something that might sound interesting?
Oh yeah, I mean he tells me, a lot of what he says is what he wants to prepare me for what's to come. So now some people might call that a prediction or a prophecy, but he is always very careful, and he says that predictions can be wrong, but preparations are never wrong. So because there's free will and there's other variables, he always talks about that. So he says this likely could happen. So when the first UAP report came out to Congress, he told me that the government, our government, and not just our government, but other governments too, are focusing on this in the wrong way. They're looking at it as a threat when it's actually an opportunity for humanity. Okay. And I'll tell you his exact words. He said, extraterrestrial technology and wisdom are precious gifts for all, not a strategic advantage for the few. So that's the part that we don't understand. Our government doesn't understand, and not just our government, but I'm sure the Russians and the Chinese are trying to get a leg up on UAP technology, right? They want to, as one friend of mine who's former FBI, if there is such a thing as former FBI, I think he's just retired FBI, right? He told me that what the government's looking to do is try to figure out how to strap a bomb to this technology so they can gain a strategic advantage. Oh. And that's not going to happen. That's not going to be allowed to happen from what I've been told. So I always hear something very, interesting and helpful and informative. Sometimes it's more personal on a personal level, or more pedestrian, like things that are just happening in my life or whatever. But oftentimes it has, global or at least national implications, what he tells me.
I have to make a little quick pause here to thank our sponsor for tonight. And our first hour is sponsored
Trigger warning. The Ohio Hauntings and Paranormal podcast is not for the faint of heart. This episode may contain adult language,
it is
sexual content,
a teaser
and graphic
for
depictions of
our
violence
first
of all
hour,
sorts.
sponsored
As such,
Ohio
this
Haunting
podcast is for mature
Legends and
audiences
Podcasts.
only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Like I said, our first hour is sponsored by the Ohio Haunting Legends, and they will take you where thousands of haunted locations, unexplained paranormal, campfire stories, supernatural happenings, and legends from all over Ohio's 88 counties that have stained by the pages of Ohio's history. The stories are haunted our society, and many of them are going to scare you. So remember, the Ohio Hauntings and Legends podcast. Just want to shout that out, and they will tell you. And I don't know what's going on with the mic. Others are legends or hearsay. Believe those that choose or believe in none. It's up to you to choose. So I think they're a great podcasts. Again, Ohio Hauntings Legends podcasts, and they take you all over the place, and they explain unexplained paranormal campfire stories. I've listened to a few of them, and if you guys have a chance, make sure you go to their website, download it, and there's a whole playlist that's going to be on the website, and they have many episodes that are genuine. Other legends are hearsay, so they have the real thing, the real legends, not something that somebody made out. So if you, Shawn, Jason, and Bruce, if you get a chance in our audience, Joni out there, you will love it. I mean, they are really good, and I just want to shout out to them. Okay, guys, go ahead, continue onward, boys, and thanks again, you wonderful podcast.
Thank you.
Oh, they'll scare you, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say my two eldest sons live in Ohio.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I want to get them on. I want to get them on the show. I think they're great. Like I said, it's not a brand new podcast. They've been around, but I like the fact that they have the Ohio Hauntings and Legends, and I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, to make a whole weekly show on it has to be great, and the way they do it is really cool. I like the way they actually act it out, sort of, but I would recommend it. So if you get a chance.
So we had a good question in the comments. Here's one. It's for Bruce. How does his historical knowledge interact with paranormal knowledge? Are there times where they cross over for him? Like in considering unknown occurrences in history, do you find yourself considering the paranormal possibilities involved, or do you tend to try and compartmentalize the two subjects?
That's a very good question. I would say there's a lot of crossover. So, for instance, talking about Anzar again, when he's trying to explain something to me, oftentimes it's not easy for me to understand. So sometimes he'll show me almost like a documentary, like a film, from what he's trying to explain to me, something from world history, something from American history. Like he was trying to explain to me about, I asked the question, what do these different alien groups, what do they want with us? Why are they here? What are they doing? And he showed me in my mind's eye, like the conquistadors, coming to the New World, or Columbus, all these early explorers. And what I took from that, and he confirmed it after I kind of got what he was saying, or what he was showing me, was that they come here for different reasons. Some are not that friendly. They want to do something that's not so good for us. Some of them want to help us. Some want to enlighten us, kind of like missionaries or something. Some are more after adventure. There's all different motivations. So just like with the human beings that came, like we're coming, to the New World, they're coming to us with this idea that they have superior technology and, knowledge and so forth. So I think that was one way that he could convey that to me, which is, I think, kind of interesting. So because I understood the history, it made sense. It was a reference point that I could use. And in terms of my class, I call it paranormal personal history, because in the class we take the time to look at how this all spiritualism came into the United States. There's ancient shamanism, right? But then there's the modern spiritualism of the 1800s. The Fox sisters in the early 1800s in upstate New York, with the rapping, they had a spirit in their house that rapped. And then you had, the people that came after them, and spiritualist societies, and like newspapers in the 1800s were mostly about paranormal stuff. It's really
Yeah.
interesting when you go back and look at them. It's always about hauntings and spiritual, seances and stuff like that. And it was really quite interesting. And then it kind of fell to the wayside a little bit, I think, with the turn of the century into 1900 in the 20th century. And but then it made a comeback, and it's making a strong comeback right now.
Right.
I mean, the paranormal, spiritualism, aliens, UFO, you name it, the whole thing.
And Bruce, you have
a show.
Definitely, Bruce. You have Steve. I'm going to bring him. He has a question for you. Steve, go ahead.
Yep.
Hello, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hello.
Let me do headphones here so you don't get an echo.
Echo.
All right. Hey, I was talking to you guys at the Bigfoot Festival.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How cool.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, the Bigfoot alien UFO barbecue. But Bruce, you're talking about alien contact, and you've got a story that's pretty similar to what a lot of contactees talk about. Is this sort of benevolent type of contact experience where they're here to help us and things like that. Obviously, what you've talked about so far, that's your experience. Two things. One, do you think these entities are actually like physical, real beings from a different planet, or are they some other sort of non-human? And are there more than just these benevolent type of entities?
Yeah, well, okay. I'll go back to those are good questions. I'll go back to my theory that I think how all this stuff works. I think that the alien world, the spirit world, and the quantum world are all really the same thing. I think they're all the same thing. They operate in the same realm. So like when ghosts, when people talk about ghosts, apparitions, they appear out of nowhere and then they disappear through walls or windows or whatever. The same thing when people report alien experiences. They appear out of nowhere. They vibrate into our reality. As a physicist friend of mine explained it, they vibrate into our reality and then they can vibrate out and they can take you with them as well. So yes, they are physical in the sense that, but they operate in a different realm. They can come into our world and we can see what we need to see, But I think just to say they're purely physical would be just like I don't think we're purely physical. I think we're spiritual beings as well. But we see, in the explicate reality that we have, we see the flesh and bones when there's really much more to us than that, especially when people pass on and their flesh and bones is in a coffin somewhere. And like my friend Gene was a spiritual being that I spoke to in the spirit world. So, and in terms of benevolence, some of these alien entities are not so nice. In fact, a lot of my friend Terry Lovelace, who the guy I talked about before, that was abducted in 1977 when he was in the Air Force, along with another airman. They were camping in Arkansas somewhere at Devil's Den, which is a perfect name for a terrible thing to happen, right? Devil's Den.
Never stayed at that place.
So they got abducted there, and they were severely injured. I mean, severely injured. And so it was a terrible experience. It was obviously against their will. And he didn't know the full extent of what was done to him, although he knew that he was hurt. And his friend said they were hurt too, so they acknowledged that. I mean, I've had a very scary experience with aliens too. It's not all been benevolent. I was having this very pleasant dream with my mom. My mom passed away in 1990. So I was having this very nice dream where I was in a house and I was talking to my mom, and I thought, oh, this is so great. I get to talk to my mom again. It was a very lucid dream. And then all of a sudden my mom started acting weird, like she was acting kind of like Mae West, and I thought, what in the heck's going on? My mom wasn't like that. That's not the way she was. And then all of a sudden she morphed into this reptilian female. And this reptilian female was extremely strong, and she lifted me and pushed me against the wall like I was nothing. And I'm 6'3", about 275. So I'm a big person, and like I was like a feather. And she told me, she said telepathically, she said, I can do whatever I want to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And she was incredibly frightening and sensual at the same time. And it was a very unnerving. And actually, the copy of the cover of my third Timeless book is an artist's rendition of what she looked like.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
she's pretty frightening.
I love that artwork.
Yeah, it's my friend Gary Dunn that did the artwork. But I've had people tell me they wanted to read the book, but they couldn't get past the cover.
oh, jeez.
The cover just freaked them out.
Put like one of those book covers on it.
In fact, after I had that experience, that lucid dream with her, where she intruded into my dream like that, I started to draw a picture of her that I then gave to the artist later. But when I was drawing the picture of her, I got violently ill, and I started throwing up, and that doesn't happen very often to me. That it happens. So I was throwing up. Finally, I felt better, and then I was fine. I didn't get sick after that. It was just the process of putting to paper her image. And then I gave it to my friend who's an artist to come up with.
I have a question for you on that one. This guy that
excuse me, Shawn. Thanks, Steve, for coming on.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
And one more second, if you have any questions, I posted a link so you can get on. Can you still hear me, guys?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead, Shawn. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So this reptilian came to you, right? Now, the guy that you hang out with when you go and you get a lot of answers from Asma, how come he never came and helped you out with that? Is he not supposed to step in and help?
Well, if I needed him to, in this case, it was a warning from the reptilians. And I couldn't figure out exactly why, because I started before this happened. There were several nights where I would just see a flash of a reptilian face. And I thought, that's kind of weird. What's going on here? And then I had another lucid dream before this where and I saw a friend of mine who I thought it was a friend of mine down. We lived kind of up on a hill a little bit, and down on the road, I saw him, and I thought it was him. He was wearing a hat and sunglasses and an overcoat, and I thought it was our friend Bobby, who's kind of a little guy, and he's part Filipino, part Mexican, so a little darker skin, and I thought it was him. And then I waved to him, "Hey, Bobby, how you doing?" And all of a sudden, this thing looked at me. And I saw it was a reptilian face. It was a darker skin, and it wasn't Bobby. It was a very frightening looking person.
Why do you think the reptilians are after you? Or
well, I don't know if they're after me. I think they're just letting me know of their presence. And the only thing I could think of the connection was that I was in the process of publishing my first comic book. And the reptilians are the bad guys in that comic book. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe
they might not know what a comic book is.
Yeah, definitely. You have another question from another caller, Nina.
Hey, Nina.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, Nina.
You have a question for Bruce?
I do. It's kind of a twofold question. So the first part is, I know we kind of were just getting onto that subject matter, but in your opinion, it seems like a lot of times whenever people are having experiences, it's very personal. It's very one-on-one with them. So in your opinion, why do you think that it is that they choose certain people to have this communication more of a one-on-one with? And it seems like it can be relatively often. And it just seems like there's so many different variations of, one story versus a personal relationship almost. So I guess the first one is, in your opinion, why do you think that they do pick and choose certain people for different degrees of communication?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Whitley Strieber, who wrote the book Communion, among other books, talks about that he calls them the visitors. He doesn't even call them aliens. He says that when they see us in our world, there's certain people who have an indicator. He calls it a glow, and that's the people they go for because they know they can reach you more easily. And I think it has to do with psychic abilities, maybe your experiences. It's easier for them to reach you and impact you than it is other people who just deny the existence of the afterworld or the alien world or the spirit world. So it's much easier to make that contact. So they're going to, follow the path of least resistance in that case. And they know that they're probably going to be able to communicate with you, both if it's a benevolent reason or, a less than benevolent or malevolent reason. So I think that's part of it. I call it my radar dish. Like when I walk around, I got to make sure that I don't have that up, because then I'm going to get all kinds of information that I don't want.
Yep.
And I'm not prepared for it. So when I take my spirit walk, I go through a lot of prayers. I go through a procedure. I get protection before and I'm very specific about, like, I have 2 spirit guides that help me. They're kind of like, the way I look at them is kind of like bouncers in a club. They're not going to let just anybody in, just who I want to let in. And I put the radar dish up, and then I got protection. But if you don't have that protection, you put the radar dish up, you're open to whatever's out there. And that could be good, and it could be not so good. I think most of what is out there is probably not bad, but could still be harmful in a different way, in that there are a lot of spirits out there. I mean, there are spirits all around us right now. I mean, they're like a couple feet away from us all the time. But you don't always sense it unless you put up that radar dish or you want to communicate. And they're not, they don't necessarily have a bad intention, but they really, when they know that they can contact you, so they're not going to waste their time on some other guy that doesn't believe in it, doesn't listen to them, doesn't care. They're going to go to you, and that's who they're going to talk to. Now, that doesn't make me any more special than anybody else. It just happens to be what everybody has I guess a talent or a hidden talent or something, I mean, that's just the way it is. And it's easier for them to contact us. So I think that's why they do. And once they do, and once they establish that relationship, and you invite the relationship, as I have with Anzar, then the relationship continues.
Okay. And I guess it kind of feeds into the second part of the question. And mind you, this seems to be the question that nobody can answer, because, I mean, why would we know? But, in your communication, do you think that there is a specific reason why they aren't more universal? I mean, I understand what you're saying. You kind of have that radar out, so they know they communicate with you. But it does obviously seem that they are more than capable of communication. They're, and more we hear a lot about sightings and everything else involved. Mm-hmm. So do you think that there is specific reasoning why we haven't seen something more public? Why is there all the mystery to it? Why can't it be more universal, where it's just out there and we know they're there and there's really no denying it because the proof is kind of right there in front of you?
Yeah, I think we're going through some preparation, what Anzar calls a leap of consciousness, not a leap of faith, but a leap of consciousness, where we're evolving to the next higher level of an entity. And to do that, so we can make more easily make contact with them, and not just 1 or 2 people or a handful of people, but as the human race, as humanity, to take this leap of consciousness. So there are a few people who are kind of like scouts, or kind of blazing the trail, trying to kind of like once again using that explorers in the new world kind of idea, that are going out there and kind of blazing the trail. Then other people will follow. So a lot of experiencers, as people are called, who have alien contact, often call themselves, you have this sense of responsibility that you are preparing not just yourself, but you're learning to help others make that leap of consciousness that Anzar calls it. And then ultimately that'll lead to what he calls an era of reconversion. Which means that we're going to be able to take the wisdom of our ancestors, who were very close to the spirit world and the alien world, what they would call the star people, and whether they're indigenous Aborigines or whether they're Native Americans, they all had this connection, right? we're going to take that wisdom, bring it into our age of technology and science, and combine the two. And that's what he says will ultimately happen. So there's kind of a nice vision of the future.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is we got to get there, and there's a lot of bumps in the road between here and there, as we see all the time, whether it's, you know, armed conflict or people hating each other, killing each other, wars and pandemics and all that stuff. But ultimately, I know that we will get there. And that's why every time I contact Anzar, he always reminds me to keep love in my heart and operate from a position of love. That's what I'm always told and reminded of, which is really hard to do. It's easy to say, right? A lot of people say, I'm going to keep love in my heart. Okay, that's easy to say. But to actually do it and put it into practice is extremely hard, but it's essential. It's absolutely essential to do it. And I don't know if that answered your question. I'm not sure if it did.
Yeah, I do. I think it does. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, you know, I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. So to hear from somebody who does have more experience with it and seems to do, you know, kind of have this personal connection. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of interest, which is probably based on some experience that you may not be consciously aware of.
Yeah, I think, well, when it comes to the paranormal world, yes. But usually with UFOs, I draw a bit of a blank.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it reaches what the old the late Jim Mars, you know, the guy from Texas, the investigator, did a lot of paranormal stuff, JFK assassination stuff. He used to call it the boggle point. A lot of people reach, and myself, I do too. If somebody tells me something that happened to them that's incredible that I've never heard of before, my immediate response is, I don't know. You know, I just don't know. Is that possible? And then I start thinking about. So I think that natural bit of apprehension to just believe everything you're told is a good thing. It's probably a very good thing. And then when you get experience and you find out, you know, you've made the connections, then it adds to your list of things that you know to be real or true.
Right. Well, thanks, Nina, for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions.
Yes, it was very good questions.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And you have
I
some
like
good
her.
stuff.
You
I
Yeah.
have
like
a very
her.
astute audience.
Oh,
So
definitely.
I actually had a question for you, Bruce. I had an experience that it's still kind of boggling my mind. It wasn't that long ago. So I was just falling asleep, like just barely asleep, and I heard this voice that said, wake up, they're here now. And at the same time that I heard this and I jumped up out of bed, I could hear all these footsteps in like the hall right outside the bedroom. Now, what do you think that might be, a paranormal thing, or like what? I'm just trying to figure out how or why or what would tell me that and what it's supposed to mean. And then at the same time hearing like the footsteps kind of thing. Like it's still, you know, I'm not sure how to decipher that, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to say without more information, but it could have been, you know, some kind of spiritual kind of stuff, you know, or it could have been alien or some combination, you know, because like I said, they operate in the same realm.
Right.
Like when I asked my friend Gene, who's in the spirit realm, I said, tell me something about aliens. And, you know, I thought, oh, that's a great question for him. He should know, he's in the spirit world, right? And he said, listen, he said, we are the aliens.
Yeah.
I believe
said,
that.
That's pretty cool. I
That's
asked
cool.
for an explanation. What do you mean, like
Yeah.
you, like Gene and all the others who have passed away in spirit, you guys are the aliens? And he said, no, you don't understand. We are all the aliens. So in other words, we're all connected.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The aliens
Right.
are really us. These are we are connected to them. That's what Anzar's told me too, that we are connected. That this is more of a reunion than anything else. And maybe they only want to take us so far. I think it was, you know, the late John Mack, who was the psychiatrist at Harvard, right? He's passed away, but he wrote several books. And one of his clients, he asked the client about, his client had asked the alien contact that she had, why all the secrecy, why all this stuff, and the alien told her, this Dr. Mack's client, We want you to believe in us, but not too much.
Hmm.
So there's kind of that element, because when you think about it, I'm very lucky in that my wife Ginger, she's very practical. She's very smart, very intuitive, but very practical. So I'll tell her all these remarkable things. Oh, I was just on this spirit walk and I talked to these ghosts, these spirits, and I talked to Anzar, and she goes, "That's really great." She's very supportive. Oh, that's great. And then she said, "But can you help me? Go out in the back. We need to dig some holes and plant some, plants." And so I physically have to remove myself from that ethereal world and come back to earth. I got to keep both feet on the ground. I can't be just living it. If she was a professional psychic or something, who knows? You'd just always be up there in that ethereal world. So I think it's important to be grounded. So I really understand that, what the alien told the client of John Max, that they want you to believe in us, but not too much. You have to live the life during, our whole life is not, I'm not on a paranormal show all the time.
Really.
This is what I do, in the evening. And then I'm grading papers about World War I and, that kind of stuff during the daytime.
Like an interesting job.
You also had some experience with angels. Would you like to share with that?
Yeah, well, the first, that healing experience in northern Norway, that was an angelic healing experience, and also one of my spirit guides. I have two spirit guides. One is named Theodora, and she's female, and she's an angelic being, and the other one looks like a Native American chief. He's very rugged looking Native American. He doesn't talk, and his name is, oddly enough, Ozzy. Kind of like, I think of Ozzy Osbourne, but he doesn't look like Ozzy Osbourne. He looks like a Native American chief or an elder. And he's really the physical, kind of the bodyguard, kind of the protector. When I do my spirit walks, he's the bouncer at the door. And Theodora is this angelic entity, and she is the one that helps facilitate the some people, psychics, call it raising the vibration. I call it raising my consciousness. She helps facilitate that, to lift me up so that I can meet the spirits or the alien entities halfway, because they have to come down to our level. We have to meet them halfway. Otherwise, that connection it's not very good. It can sometimes work, but it's kind of like those old radios where you tune them in, and you kind of sometimes you get a really good connection. You can hear the music or hear the voice, but other times it's kind of like between channels and a lot of static, and it's not always really clear. So she helps with those connections, and Ozzy protects me from, malevolent entities that want to encroach upon me.
Exactly. Well, before we go on, I just want to thank our sponsor for this hour, Carnation. Breakfast essentials are great. Light start. They have 150 calories and they have a lot of protein. So make sure you start your morning or afternoon or a midnight snack, because John's going to need one later. So Carnation, thank you. Thank you for sponsoring us. Okay, guys. I have a question. How can I learn how to talk to Anzar if I wanted to?
Well, this is a very interesting question, because at first he was just talking to me, right? And then I asked him, I said, do you talk to other people? And he said, not at this time, no, not right now. So I said, well, that's interesting. He said, I'm specifically for you, and this is the way we're going to have this communication. And then, but I was always open to other people talking. It's not that I didn't want him to talk to other people. It's just that was the way our communication has been. But since that time, I told you about my friend Lucy, who saw him and she heard him. And so she was able to contact. Now, she doesn't contact him anymore. She doesn't go out of her way to do it. And then my friend Terry Lovelace, who I mentioned earlier, he is very interested in my contact with Anzar. So anytime I come up with anything, he wants me to email him and, send him what Anzar's told me. Well, he went and found a friend of his who's a psychic, and they made contact with Anzar. So now he has had contact with him as well. So I don't see why you couldn't, Jenny, if you wanted to. that
Well,
you
how would you do it? Like go into like just do some meditation? Do I do some kind of like a mantra or something to
it depends on what you want to do. I start by asking, I say a prayer,
okay.
and whatever your belief system is, use that. If you're, I grew up in the Norwegian Lutheran Church, so I have this set of prayers that I do, and then I ask Theodora and Ozzy to help me make this connection to raise my consciousness or vibration, whatever you want to call it, and to have protection while I'm doing that. And then I will welcome everybody that I want to talk to. Usually I welcome all my relatives, my grandmothers and grandfathers, my aunts and uncles, my brother and sister who've passed away, and a couple of spirit friends that I have, including Jean. And then also I'll invite Anzar and a couple others. And then after I do all that, then I press record right on my phone, and then I start asking questions, or sometimes I will just listen. I'll say, okay, I'm just going to do freestyle. I'm going to listen to what you guys are telling me. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to hear what you're saying, and I'm going to speak it into my recording, my phone, my voice recorder. And so sometimes I do that. So as long as you have protection and use whatever kind of protection, or prayers or whatever you want to do, and then just ask the universe, ask him directly. Say,
why do you put a recorder on? Can you pick up something on the recorder?
No, I don't pick up their voices at all. Just what I hear them say, or sometimes what they show me. It's not always spoken.
Okay, so you don't actually see it. It's all in your mind. Like
I see images.
You actually see him.
Sometimes I can see him, not every time.
No, you have your eyes open, or are they shut?
No, they have to be open because I'm walking on the side of a road, so I gotta have them open. I don't want to, wander.
Okay, so you see him with your visual eyes. It's not like something like in your mind, like mind's eye. You actually see him.
Well, I see what looks like the best way I can describe it. Like when I have a vision, I see like a holographic image. It's not a solid image like you would normally see in the explicit reality that we have. So that's what I see. And sometimes it's clearer than other times. Sometimes I just hear their voices, or I hear their thoughts, whatever they're communicating to me. Sometimes they show me, like I said, like a film, like a clip from a film, the visual, Sometimes they'll show me symbols, symbolic kind of stuff that I have to interpret.
Did you ever leave this plane and go like to a different dimension or craft?
Okay, that's a couple of different ways to answer that. When I go into that meditative state and I make that connection, I'm connecting with them on that quantum, the quantum realm. So that is a different realm than what we're in right now. So that's why I have to record what I'm saying and what I'm hearing, because the first few times I did it, I thought, man, this is great. And then I was done, and okay. And then what did they just tell me? I forgot what they just said, because I was in a different, I was in that meditative state, so I couldn't remember. That's why I started recording, so I didn't miss out on this information. In terms of craft, I don't normally, I don't want to go on a craft. I'll just put it that way right now. I have been on one in a previous experience that I didn't talk to you guys about, but in 1973, it was a very classic experience where I was taken up into a craft. And so I don't request that.
Well, you don't. Wasn't it a pleasant experience?
It was pretty frightening, although ultimately it ended up being a good experience. That's where I met and I've seen this guy too a couple times, an insectoid who looks like a cross between a Jerusalem cricket and a praying mantis, which is pretty frightening.
Oh yeah. And
he was a doctor. I call him Dr. Bug. And
he was a doctor. He was like a regular doctor.
He was like, well, yeah, not one you'd choose as part of your HMO, I don't think. He would not be that. He wouldn't be the guy you would choose if you wanted to have a doctor of your choice. But he was there, and he wasn't torturing me, but he didn't have very good bedside manner. Although he did admonish a couple of the little gray guys who had put this like a harness device on my head, like a
that
clamp.
was a nightmare, wasn't it?
And he told them to take it off because it was hurting me. It was all done telepathically. And then I asked, what is all this about? What are you doing? And he told me, you're here for special processing. So what I have determined is that there was a special reason they wanted me. You know, maybe it was to prepare me for the life I'm leading now. I don't exactly know all of it, but I think
How long ago was that? You said
that was in 1973.
1973.
Yeah. So I was 15.
You were quite young.
Yeah, 15.
Yeah.
And did he abduct you from your bedroom, or was it somewhere else, like in a wilderness?
I was in my bedroom. Yeah, he took me right out of my bed. Yeah,
that's around the same time as Travis Walton was abducted.
In 73.
It was around the same time. I'm not sure.
The 70s were pretty active time, because I had another experience in 77 and then yet another one in 78.
You weren't doing any kind of like drugs or any like LSD or anything. This
No.
Total. Okay.
Yeah. No, I wasn't doing any drugs or anything.
There's a lot of alien abductions at that time. A lot of
them
were
in fact, my friend Terry Lovelace, his experience was in 77, the same year I had. I had a dual experience with. I was on a road trip, driving to Salt Lake City. My friend and I call him Ernie in my book, because he wanted me to change his name. We went from Seattle. We made it to Black Pine Peak in the wilderness in Idaho, and it was pitch dark, and we were trying to find a campground, couldn't find, so we just parked on the side of a road, dirt road, and that's when all the stuff started to happen. We started to see lights. We heard weird noises. The lights weren't coming like cars, but like from up above. And I felt like there was people or entities or something outside of the car. And so all of this stuff I remember consciously. And then I just I blanked out. I didn't know what else had happened. And I did a hypnotic regression with this lady named Yvonne Smith. And I was able to fill out the rest of the story. And so what I found out was that my friend and I, these were alien entities. I was able to describe them more clearly, what they look like. This was a craft. I wasn't taken in that experience, but my friend Ernie was. He was taken. So what's interesting, so I pieced it all together, and then I called my friend Ernie and I said, Ernie, I want to talk to you about our experience. And I didn't start off with the alien stuff. I just started, what do you remember about our trip? And he explained everything. Oh yeah, we pulled off side of the road. There was these weird lights. It seemed like there were people outside. I felt like I was drugged. I don't really remember much beyond that. And I said, Ernie, you're not going to believe this, but I did this regression and I found out that those were alien entities and you were actually taken. And then he got really, really mad at me. I mean, he got really mad and he didn't want to talk to me anymore. And he said, if you would have told me that from the beginning, I would have hung up the phone and, and he said, you're not going to publish this story and use my name. And I said, Ernie, why are you so upset? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. And he was really hostile. And so he hung up the phone. I tried to email him several times. Finally, he emailed me back and he said, I do remember what happened. And I remembered one of the aliens said, what's with this guy? He's really a squealer. You think he'd never seen pincers. You think he'd never seen pincers before, like pincers, right? So so he told me that in the email, and then he hasn't spoken to me since.
Really?
He won't talk to me.
He was really upset about it.
And I talked to other people about it who've, like Terry Lovelace and others who've had dual experiences with other people. That's very common that one person will deal with it and want to get to the bottom of it, and the other person will just shut down. And the friendships or the relationship, even marriages have broken up over it.
Yeah, because it's something you don't really talk about.
It's very common that this would happen.
Like Fight Club.
So, but to end that little story, I knew I had written some poetry after that trip in 1977 when I got home. So I dug through all my papers. I collected all my stories, and because I've been writing since I was a little kid, and I found the poem that I wrote. And the name of the poem from that 77 trip, that experience, was "I Sold Out to the Aliens." And in that poem, at the bottom of the poem, I mentioned pincers.
Pincers.
Pincers, like
wow.
he said, like the comment that he said. And when I read that, I hadn't remembered that until I knew I had the poem and it had something to do with that trip. But my blood ran cold when I read that, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's some kind of corroboration, not only corroboration from my friend Ernie, but also this physical document, this source document from that year. So yeah,
it's a crazy year. Yeah.
It was, it's pretty bizarre stuff and pretty mind-blowing. And sometimes people say that's so cool, I wish I've had alien experience, and I'm not. Yeah, I mean it's both a blessing and a curse.
I bet.
In a way. Yeah.
That would be, because people think you're crazy. No,
think you're nuts. Yeah, exactly. Or at least do the eye roll.
Is your friend Lovelace related to Linda?
No, not related to Linda.
How did I know that was coming up? I must be psychic.
Hey, that's the first thing I thought when I first became friends with him. I didn't ask him.
Very unusual name.
Yeah. I'm not even sure. Is that her real name? I'm not even sure.
I don't know. I read her book and I saw the movie, so I don't know.
I have one more question. First of all, I want to thank you for being on the show tonight. I mean, everything was interesting. But my question is, now I deal with bad spirits, good spirits, demons, stuff like that. And my question to you is, when you first started to talk to Anzar, were you a little suspicious on who you were talking to? Any of the other people that are talking to him now, like, could it be something like another spirit that is like imitating him?
That's a good question.
Demonic presence.
It's very good question. I've had demonic experiences too that I haven't really talked. Some of the scariest stuff that's happened to me. So I know what that feels like, and this does not feel like that. And also, like I said, he reminds me every single time to keep love in my heart and operate from a position of love. Now, if he was using that, if he was a demonic entity and was using that as a clever way,
he wouldn't be saying that.
He wouldn't be saying that, and he wouldn't be saying it over, several years, So,
right.
And so I'm convinced that he is, not malevolent, but benevolent, and that he is who he says he is. And it's interesting, my friends, including Terry Lovelace, who's had contact with him now, also, and they told me that. They said, I wasn't really sure about your story when you first told it, but now I'm sure, because I've told them all the, quote unquote prophecies, and some of them have come true. And because of the continuing very positive information that he gives and presents, that they believe it to be true, that he is who he says he is. Yeah. And so I'm convinced of it myself. And I have had demonic experiences, and it is a very different experience. And it's very difficult for demonic entities to remain. They can trick you, but that trick usually is pretty quick.
No, definitely.
Right. They can't keep it up. It kills them. I think it literally kills them. It diminishes their power, when they.
You were an amazing guest. I'm so glad we had you on the show.
Well, thank you very much.
We could talk more, but
thank you.
I want to know, where can we get if someone wants to buy your books, learn more about you?
Yeah, my website has everything on it, BruceOLAVSolheim.com. So my full name, no spaces in there. Or you can get my books, look up Solheim, Bruce Olav Solheim on Amazon. All my books are there. One of my comic books is there too, which is also about aliens. So
now, did you illustrate yourself?
No, the illustrator who I showed you that picture of the reptilian. Yeah, Gary Dumm, who's been illustrating since the 70s comic books. I got him to illustrate my comic books for me. So I write them, I design them, and then he does the artwork for it. So
that's awesome.
So that's where you can find me, and people. I love people contacting me. My contact email is on there on my website, and I love to answer questions, help people out. Hopefully they are interested in the books, So just I just always end things by saying what Anzar always tells me to keep love in your heart and operate from a position of love.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes,
You have
thank
a
you.
good night.
Thank you, guys. I
Thank you.
enjoyed it very much.
We did too.
I enjoyed your food.
All right.
That was great.
Yeah, it was
Hey.
good show. Good show.
Good show. Good show.
Yeah, very informative.
Very, very interesting stuff. I mean, everything I like. So,
Mhm.
no, I thought it was great. I mean, I would love to talk to him, the Anzar. I'm gonna have him.
Start
you know,
practicing.
No, seriously,
Yeah.
I would love. It would be so
Why
cool
don't
to
you?
be. It would be so cool. Well, I don't think I can get ever until meditated that deep. I used to be able to meditate that deep, but
All right.
I think there's just so much out here right now that I can't concentrate on one thing. Because,
Okay.
like you said, that when he was talking about telepathy and how you can hear everybody's thoughts, that's how I am right now with everybody's emotions. I'm like, shut
Yeah, I know what you mean.
What am
Oh,
I
so
thinking,
it's-
Jenny? What am I
oh.
thinking?
you better stop it. Yeah, it was pretty
I
cool.
will say this: when you did that thing with the zero, I'm sitting here and I'm concentrating. I'm like, that's a circle.
Yeah.
I did.
I
That's
used
why
to do
went.
that. Yeah, I used to have cards because my mom was real into ESP, and we would do that. I mean, I took all kind of back in the day. I was all into that. I can like if I think of somebody, they'll call me. Or did you ever do this where you're thinking or something's going on in your life, and you see a commercial or a TV ad? I mean, everywhere you go, like the
Yeah.
I don't know, the plot of a story. Like if you're watching the whole stories about something that's going on in your life, it's like, what the hell is going on? It's
Not
crazy.
so much TV, but for me, it's usually comes on the radio in the song.
Yeah, that
honestly.
too.
That's
Or you're
big for me.
driving down the street and a truck comes by with this big, like whatever you're thinking, maybe is you're
Right.
thinking of buying or you're having a connection with God, and all of a sudden, I'm not kidding you. I was praying, and all of a sudden, there's a big tractor trailer, and it said God on it. I said, "Oh my God, that is so crazy."
I always like
That's
driving
cool.
down the highway, and then you see all those signs like God is watching. Are you
Yeah.
ready for Jesus? And then right after, you'll see whatever gentleman's club ahead of 2 miles.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, you're right. Out west. Out west. Yeah. But
that always cracks me up.
so what are your plans for the weekend there, Jenny?
Me.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend the evening with my son.
Okay.
Because his wife is going. She's going to somewhere to meet her mother's birthday. So we're gonna have Mummy Sunday. We're gonna watch a movie. He has this gigantic TV that's bigger than his house. And finally, I asked him. I said, "When are you gonna invite me over to watch a movie?" Because his TV is so spectacular. So yeah, so I can't wait to do that. It'll be fun. You better not
Hey,
blow me
Jace.
off.
Yeah.
Jason, tell Jenny about our investigation.
Yeah,
on
let me
Friday.
hear about it.
Oh my! So this
Was it a good one?
Yep.
Yes, I believe so.
Do you have any evidence?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when
It's
are you going
all
to share
documented.
that?
I have to review it, but we're heading to Gettysburg this weekend, so
That'll be fun. Definitely before you tell me about before you get into detail, I want you to make sure you go and snap your picture in Jenny Wade's house a couple times and see if you catch anything.
All right.
The necklace.
Don't forget.
Okay.
Well, now that you said that, we'll forget.
No.
Not a problem. We will. We'll
Okay,
definitely
go ahead
will.
and tell me about this week.
All right, so we were in Katanning, and it wasn't that far from where we were going to be giving the presentation, so we just stayed up there. So we got to help these people. They live in an old homestead house in the woods. I mean, and
Yes.
it's pitch black, dirt road, no street lights, no cell phone service. And it's
You
like,
should have went in October. Okay.
yeah, it's like, where are we going? And they're talking about experiences with their daughter growing up and everything. So we get there and we're talking to the family, and the daughter, she always had these 2 little girls ever since she was a little girl that were always following her around everywhere. Like she would say they would eat dinner, be at the dinner table with them and everything. They showed us a picture of an apparition that was in their kitchen window that wasn't there. They were taking like a selfie and you
Okay.
catch it. So that was pretty fascinating. And also in this girl's room, she used to live there. She lives with her fiance now, and they moved out and everything. But they were talking about how something would always like grab ankles and stuff while you're trying to sleep.
Mm.
So we got all this information going on. And so we're down in the living room. All the lights are out. Everything is out. It's pitch black in this house. You can't even see your hand in front of your face. So I got a camera rolling. We have K2 meters going, and we start doing trying to do the K2 session, and not really, it's just more of a feeling kind of thing at the moment because none of our equipment was hitting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the camera running, start asking more questions. I catch this flash on my screen real fast. Now it's in night vision mode, and I have IR lights that are really high powered. Catch this flash from the kitchen. I wasn't sure what it was. I look up, I didn't see anything. I'm like, so I said something. I said, I saw his flash. I don't know what it was. Might have been a fluke. I'm not sure. So we continue asking questions. And all of a sudden, what it was, they had those fake candles that have run off batteries or solar powered, have on off switches. Well, the one in the kitchen window turned on, like something actually flicked the switch on, and it stayed on. And we're sitting there
Wow.
oh my goodness, what's going on? Something turned that on, and the homeowner's like, we turned those all off. They were in the off position. I was like, yeah, we saw that because obviously the lights were out. And we're asking it, can you turn it back off? And you can see it tried, but it was unsuccessful. I guess it needed more energy. So they got up, they go over, they turn this candle off. And as soon as they turned that one off, there was one that was in the room next to them in the dining room.
And this all
right
happened.
on.
You saw this, Shawn.
Yeah, it's on video. It's on video.
It's on video.
This is a residential house.
Yes, an old homestead house. So now the crazy part about this investigation, so let's go to the room upstairs that used to be the daughter's room.
Mm-hmm.
I took her fiance up first because he's had some experiences. He was a little skeptical, he wanted to tell his side of the story. So I said, okay, let's go up. And he was explaining to me how the room used to be set up, and the thing would grab your ankles. I was like, all right, this is interesting. I'm let's see what we can find out. So I had him sit on the far end of the bed, and I was like, all right, let's do some communication. I'll film. If anything happens, let me know how you're feeling. Like, I want you to be fully interactive in this. So we start asking questions and telling the spirit, if someone's here, you can pull ankles or whatever it wants to do. So I'm standing there filming this. This is all on video. I have it all. And he's like, my left foot is starting to move unwillingly. So I'm like, okay. So I'm watching it. And, my first thoughts are, okay, anybody can move their foot, but the way it was curling, it was almost like if something grabbed it and started rolling his foot. So I was like, this is a little different. And then he froze up. He literally froze, like his hands were clenched. He was frozen. And then his right foot started moving, pointing towards where I was standing. So I'm like, I'm on the fence.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he says, something's starting to push me down. And he, like I said, he was frozen up. He starts getting pushed backwards. And I said, well, if you're okay with it, just ride it out. Let's see what happens. So he's like, you could hear in his voice, he was getting scared. So once I heard that, I was like, okay, something's definitely going on. And whatever it was, he's like, I'm fighting it. He's like, I can't, it's pushing me down. He was frozen, and it pushed him all the way down until his head bumped the wall. And he's like, I can't move.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, it's pushing on me. I can't move. So I said, stop it. Let him go. I had to say that 3 times. And on the 3rd time, his whole body just went limp for a second. Like something just completely let go of him.
Well, ghosts aren't supposed to hurt you. So do you think it was a ghost?
I feel like it was definitely something. It wasn't hurting him. It was just like, to me, it was more like, I'm here, I'm going to mess with you kind of thing. But so there's a couple more parts to this. So after that, I said, okay, I'm going to sit down next to you. I'm going to film. I'm going to see if anything happens to me, because I told him, I said, you're more afraid of it. I'm not, so chance, it's going to be more, you're going to be more susceptible. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, if anybody's here, now I'm sitting on the bed and my feet are dangling probably this far from the floor. Okay. I got boots on and everything. And I said, if anyone's here, can you grab my foot or my ankle or whatever? I want to see what happens. I'm curious. As soon as I said that, I started feeling like this tension on my left foot area, and it caused a pain in my left knee. So I was like, all right, now this is getting interesting. So I'm like, well, can you do any more? And then nothing happened. Now this whole time I have an EMF pump running, to really amplify and get, more juice out there for the spirits. This thing started ramping up. I've never heard it do this. I've had it for a while. Like it just started, I thought it was going to explode. Yeah, it just started ramping up. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to go downstairs, take a break. And right as I said that, the best way I could describe this is if like somebody was under the bed, reached out and slapped the side of my boot, and there was nothing there. I jumped up. I was like, what the was that? I was like, oh my God, that was awesome. I don't know what it was. Something slapped my boot. So we get downstairs and, we're kind of talking a little bit about it, not too much. Didn't really go over sequence of events or anything. So I took the daughter up and, because it used to be her room, and I wanted to try an experiment. So I had her sit in the same spot. Now they didn't communicate like, hey, I did this and I did that, or anything of that nature. So I sat her there, start the same process again. The same exact sequence of events happened with her. Her foot started rolling like if something grabbed it.
Nice.
Then her other foot started turning out, and then she froze up and something started pushing her down. And at that moment I was pretty convinced that we were dealing with something not bad. Like I said, it wasn't out to hurt anybody. But
so you're going to go back?
Games. We might, if they call on us back.
But what's the coolest thing is that we got it on video. We got all the sequence. You will.
It's all documented on video.
It's all documented and
if
on
I could
video.
figure out how to do this sound and everything, I would play it on here for whenever you get it. I'm going to have to ask Joe how to do that because I can't do it unless he can do it. Because I can't get the sound. I'm not.
Okay.
So I would definitely say it was a very active night, between the candles turning on and then the both of these individuals experiencing the same exact thing in like almost the identical sequence without communicating to each other. What happened. That was really fascinating.
Johnny wants to know, did you get rid of it?
No.
No, Johnny.
No, not yet. Maybe if it starts, being mean or
nasty, then we'll go out. But no, we didn't get rid of it. We didn't get rid of nothing.
Yeah, they just kind of wanted to see like what's going on, like possibly try to figure out who it is, and so we got a lot of reviewing to do.
Okie dokie. It's coming to that time to go.
Yeah, getting ready for mine.
Okay, well. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm so glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
And if you have any ideas for shows, definitely put a comment in either Pittsburgh Paranormal or Pittsburgh Paranormal Chasing Prophecy Radio, or send us an email at chasingprophecyradio@gmail.com. Okie dokie.
Thank you for joining guys. Torture Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Torturous, but it was good. Okay.